To the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show on the Storehouse Media Group podcast with our host, Sherry from Storehouse Media Group. Sherry, how are you? I'm excited about our guest. I know you are as well. Any author, because that's what you live and breathe as authors.
I do. I'm excited about Drew Hammer. And because, not only is she an author, but she is a strong woman of faith. And I read some of her book and it's like, wow, I was just so moved by it.
So, Drew, thanks for
Oh,
stopping
thank
by.
you for that.
You're welcome. Drew, thank you for stopping by. And let's talk about, again, your debut memoir, Hammered. Why did you write the book? I mean, that's the hard part because you're kind of releasing a lot of the challenges when it's a memoir. I'm working on my documentary now, and it's so tough because you have to go back and uncover lots of things that you might want to forget about. We all, but it's kind of also, I guess, in a way, letting things go by writing it.
Yes, and actually I started by just journaling because I began writing after a very difficult divorce, after a 25-year marriage. And I realized that there's so many women and men that go through divorce, and, it breaks your heart, and then you can have unforgiveness, and then bitterness sets in. And when I was journaling, I realized I hadn't totally forgiven. And then I started praying. And as I was journaling and writing all these things down, the Lord started really working on my heart and saying, forgive. Jesus says, don't forgive just 7 times, 70 times 7. And as I was doing it and I handed it to the Lord, I noticed all these miracles started happening. And when I would tell my friends about it, they're like, Drew, there's no way that could have just happened. There's no such thing as a coincidence. You've got to write these things down, and you've got to write a book. And I laughed because I got a D in my first English paper in college. So I am the least likely person in the world to write a book. But it's really about the faithfulness of God. And I had to use the word hammered as my title because every heart has been hammered. Even Jesus said, you will have trials and tribulations, but I've overcome the world. So I really hope that I'm given a platform to really teach people, the importance of forgiveness. And also, I think it's important for women to, find something that they can do because you never know what's around the corner. God will never fail us, but people fail us occasionally. And I had a business where I flipped properties, and I thought I was just doing it for fun, but it actually became, it really sustained me, and that's how God blessed me out of my divorce. So he had a plan my entire marriage because he's never taken by surprise, as we know. And he knew that I would be divorced. And, God hates divorce, but sometimes it just happens. It takes 2 to tango. So also, you get hammered when your whole family is dragged through the mud in the press. And it was kind of a feeding frenzy. It was during the whole cancel culture and Me Too, and then people were stuck in their homes and through COVID, and it was a feeding frenzy. But I really believe that God is going to use this and turn it for good, and that's what this book is about.
You talk about journaling, and that is such a good way to write a book. That's how I did my first book, is I journaled. And then when it came time,
Yes.
I felt this overwhelming need that God said, write a book. You have to share this with others.
Yes.
And so that's how he led me to do it. And so even if you've never written a book, if God's got his kiss on it, you can get through that book, right? You can just plow right on through
That's
it,
right.
and he'll direct you. Yeah, that's a beautiful story.
Well, and it did take me 10 years.
Yeah.
We don't want to rush into anything, do we? But, I kept putting it down because it's not easy to put yourself out there and be so vulnerable. And to me, if you're going to write the book, it has to be the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's just life in general. And boy, the Hammer family, we've had a lot of good, bad, and ugly. And I think, a lot of it has been untrue in the press and also exaggerated. But, that's what sells. Nice, sweet stories don't sell, apparently. So I had to really be, open and be very vulnerable in this book. And I thought if I'm going to write it, you have to tell the truth and the whole truth. But the beauty is God is there during all of it, and he's there to pick us up.
Right. And I think in your book, you're definitely going to talk about specifically some of these controversies and finally address them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when you got married to your ex-husband, you didn't expect, I guess, just the growth of what you guys grew as an empire and to go through all those trials and tribulations after achieving success, I guess, on paper.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's the part is in life, there's, you have your ups and you have downs. And, I think I've experienced the extreme of both. But I always say we don't grow in good times. We grow in tough times. And that's when you realize, there is a God out there that is waiting for us to turn to him. And I've known the Lord my whole life. I asked the Lord into I grew up in a Pentecostal family, and I asked Jesus into my heart at 5, and he's always been there. And it's interesting because I've had people ask me before, well, when you married into the Hammer family and Michael, do you think you made a mistake because you ended up getting a divorce? And I go, heck no. I even had the privilege of leading Dr. Armin Hammer, a 91-year-old Russian Jew, to Jesus 6 months before he died. He called me on the phone and said, Drew, you have something I don't have, and I need it. His wife had just passed away. So, God never makes mistakes, but he never promises us we're going to have a perfect life. Jesus was persecuted, and, look at his life. So why would we expect anything different? But we need to take these things and share them with others, and hopefully, I always say, I may not ever change the world, but I can change the world that God has put me in. So my book, and I also have a brand, Druville, Ville.com, and I have an AI project coming out, about 1,500 questions about what does the Bible say, and my life, and the book. So all these things can be found on Druville.com or hammeredheart.org, my foundation. So all these things are going to feed into my foundation so I can go out and help others because we're called to be Jesus's hands and feet.
Yeah. You had said that you were awakened at 5:55 in the morning to write this book, and the fives had specific meaning to you. Explain that, but also it took you 9 years. What were some of your challenges in writing the book?
Well, I actually believe the challenges is each time you have to rip a Band-Aid off. When you talk about the difficulty in your divorce and the man that you loved, is now, come against you because that's what happens in a divorce a lot of times. And, not only that, but I really believe that God wanted it to come full circle because now that Army is coming out and finally speaking about it, because the last 4 years, he would not comment. He would not speak about it. He didn't retaliate. And I loved my pastor in Malibu said one time that if you come to your own defense, it's the only defense you're going to have. Let God come to your defense, and the truth always comes out. So I really believe it took 9 years because God was going to bring it full circle. And now I can talk about what happened with Army. And, now he's sober and he's coming back to the Lord. And it's really beautiful. He's happier than he's ever been in his life. He had something happen at age 14, which I talk about in my book. And it really destroyed him at the time. And I think God's going to give me a platform as well, helping other parents that have children go through this. Right. Because this is a tough world, and you think you can protect your kids, but sometimes things happen.
The controversy with your son and what came out, which again, how the mainstream media and how documentaries and everything want to put things in a light that's not true just to get more eyeballs. It must have been hard on you, right? And then for Arnie finally to come out about this.
Oh, it was of course, the saying, a mother is as happy as her least happy child. And then your son is being absolutely destroyed. A cannibal? You have to eat someone to be a cannibal. It's like, are you kidding me? Yes, but again, I do believe that God is turning all this around. An army is being restored in his life. And, God is faithful, but it doesn't necessarily happen in our timing. I prayed for him for 23 years for this moment. And, we want God to answer prayers immediately. And sometimes he's like, sorry, you got to wait, but I'm faithful no matter what.
Wow. Well, how long have you been a believer?
Oh, gosh. I was raised in a Pentecostal family in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the buckle of the Bible Belt, as I say. And I invited the Lord into my heart when I was 5 years old. And he has been faithful to me my entire life. I learned, my parents were such beautiful Christians because they didn't preach it, they lived it. And it wasn't about religion, it was about a relationship. And I remember my dad saying to me, Drew, the longest distance in the world is 12 inches. It's moving God from a head knowledge down to a personal relationship. And that's what I want to teach people. It's not about religion. It's not about how many times you go to church. Yes, I go to church. I love church. I grow from it and I get fellowship. But it's really a personal relationship. And that's why in my book, I even end every chapter with a prayer because, prayer is just a simple conversation with God. And I talk to him like I talk to anyone in my life. And he wants to be a personal God and he wants to be your best friend. And that's what I hope people learn from reading this book. And in hard times, he's there.
And it's a perfect timing for the book, as you talked about your son coming out, but also the environment we're living in right now. You need to address because based on how your son got in the tabloids and the big documentary and all these different things and really made it like a front page news. Now your name can get that message out. So sometimes God does things like, why did it happen? Because now you can get this message out at the most difficult because that different people are going to see the Hammer name and then they're going to want to, and then you're going to be able to come to their lives.
That is exactly what I am going for, Neil. That's exactly what I'm going for. And I just really pray, this isn't writing a book, to get my name out there. It has nothing to do with me. It's that I believe God's given me a platform to really teach people and show them through my own life that we serve a faithful God. And this is a hopeless world. And I believe that Jesus is our only hope. I really believe that. And he died on the cross for us so we could have eternal life and live a life. That's why we're mental, physical, and spiritual beings. God created us as spiritual beings to have a relationship with him. And I pray to God that the people that read this really find Jesus in this book. That's what it's all about.
100%. Okay. All right. Go ahead. I guess the best place people can find and purchase your book, where can they go?
They can go to drewville.com and they can go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Well, Drew, we really, really appreciate it. And it's really a challenge for you to come out here because there's going to be a lot of people that are there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say yes to this. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, hateful. So I will keep you my prayers for what the challenges you're going to go through this process of getting the book out and to really put yourself out there because you can just sit back and involving your project venture with the AI. I'd be happy anytime to sit down and promote that at one point and talk more about that on my show. So
wonderful.
Let me know.
I would love that. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
I appreciate everything.
All right. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Storehouse Media Group.